How's it going, everybody? Happy holidays. We are doing a UAP Tuesday here on the Down to Earth channel. So I figured that we just had so much more to talk about with everything going on with these drones, and there's still no answers about it. And it seems like they're trying to make it quiet again. Like, oh, yeah, it's just one of those stories. Now we don't really have any answers anymore. It's going away. It's not really going away, though. And there's all these different theories about what it is. It's still happening as much as it was a week and a half ago. It's just not being reported on as much from some places because it's that's just what happens in a news cycle. Right after a while, unless there's something really big that happens, it just kind of goes away. And I think that's what a lot of people are counting on. But there's a lot of people theorizing, a lot of people talking about it in general. There's a lot of things out there from the same thing, that not only are there potential U.S. drones looking for materials, whether nuclear or whatever it might be. Another theory, we had Steve Bassett on this show, and his potential theory is that not only is it being sniffed out for nukes, but it's actually NHI that's sniffing out the nukes also. There's a lot of different theories out there, man. Inside of that, we also have talk from James Latky talking about things that are going on overall, because the drones have been kind of covering the entire news cycle when it comes to the UAP subject. There's some other things that James Latky told Jeremy Corbell that we're going to get into that are interesting, kind of leading up to it. And the 2025 conversation seems to be getting stronger and stronger and stronger. The overall question is going to be like, what really happens, though, if anything? So we're going to do a down-to-earth UAP Tuesday, myself and Attack Peter. It's time. Let's do it. Here we go. All right, thanks for joining us back on the show once again. Joining me on this Tuesday is my good buddy, the wonderfully talented Adina Mazel, or what's it? Hazim Nadel, Attack Peter.
I did not know where you were going with that. I'm like, holy shit, he just had a stroke on live on the
Hazim Nazim, whatever he said, whatever John Travolta.
Oh no, yeah, it's such a good one. Someone in the comments just spell it out phonetically. It's so good. It's one of my favorite clips of all time.
Wickedly talented Hadel Nazim. Well, welcome back to the show, Attack Peter.
What's up, dude?
It's good to have you, man. So,
yeah,
dude, we've been going back and forth on text over the last week. But did you see what I was saying, though, that it seems like, even though it seems like the main people really kind of are hoping that the story is going to go away, but it's not going away?
This is exactly what I expected. I think we talked about it a little bit, where it's like this thing has to go away or get solved fast. And I felt like going away is an easier thing for whoever to achieve, because, you know, the media, as we know, is like heavily influenced, you know, by corporations and special interests and all that kind of stuff. So I figured it was going to go away. It definitely has slowed down on the mainstream media. There's still things that trickle through. Shout out to News Nation, who always covers this stuff.
Yep.
And of course, all the independent journalists. But this is what I expected, man. And now I'm concerned that it's going to just be hard to pull back into the mainstream. Like my drone jokes aren't landing as well anymore.
No, and not as much, because people are like, oh, that story's still happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that is kind of what I was talking about before, but it is still being discussed, obviously. But I think that what's going to have to happen is that there just needs to be another major event. You know, like, because it's like, if it's still the same ones just kind of flying around, like, oh yeah, those things are just here now. That's what we are. That's how we are as a species. You know, it's like, oh yeah, I remember when we cared about that a week ago, and now we don't.
Right.
But it's still being discussed, and as we mentioned, there are still news outlets that are bringing up, having conversations about it, because it hasn't gone away. By the way, they're still flying around there, and things are happening. But listen to this one report on Fox News. Check this out.
The administration has brought in technology to track and whatnot. The reality is they've brought in technology that's only capable of tracking class 1 and class 2 drones, not class 3 and class 4. These drones that we're talking about, that we're seeing, are large drones. They're not your typical drone. When I say drone, you typically think about something the size of your hand. These are in no way, shape, or form that. So it seems to me that it's very convenient. They're bringing the technology in that's not going to find an answer to this problem. They're going to be able to say, American public, don't believe your eyes. You're only seeing planes and stars and 1,000 regular legally operated drones. It's plausible deniability, and we're sick of this.
Okay, so the plausible deniability, right? And that's what he's saying there, and that this kind of goes over what you and I were just discussing, that what it seems like, and we're going to follow this up with the Steve Bassett stuff. It does seem like what the government or whoever else is hoping that these things are going to go away. It's going to stop, and nobody's going to care anymore. But like, oh, yeah, remember those things? Oh, yeah, I remember that. That was funny, those dead drone thing. Well, that was just, they found out what it was. It was just a bunch of kids doing this. And like, oh, okay, that's it. But this seems like this guy is saying, no, that's whatever you're trying to do here. We know as well as you do, this BS, they're not going to track these things. And it also seems like they're kind of just hoping it goes away. But what do you make of the New Jersey mayor's comments here?
I mean, if this starts to go away, the only hope we'll have of figuring out what it was and is folks like this guy, like local representatives, state representatives. That's it, who have more of a direct line to the people in those areas. So if not for this, it's going to go away is what worries me. But yeah, we talked about this a little bit too. And I can't remember if we talked about it on air or not, but I had this feeling that's like, and now I've heard it said everywhere, but that if there was something, that they didn't want us knowing about or seeing, whether it's NHI or another government or another country, whatever it is, that them having their own drones in the air could at minimum serve to be like a red herring, or like, in other words, oh, one of the drones crashed. Oh, that's a US drone. Well, we were up there doing things that, or whatever, testing out equipment, and you guys thought it was a UFO or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, just having them up there creates confusion, creates plausible deniability. It's like, look, we can point over there. He's talking about the effectiveness of it, which is also weird. Why would you put that up unless that's all we have, which would be also shocking to hear?
The United States government knew about the ET presence no later than July of 1947 in Roswell. Made the decision at that time to keep that from the American people. Fine. Almost exactly 5 years later to the week, there was a significant flyover of Washington, D.C. The U.S. government had a problem. General John Sanford made the response for the government, which was equivocative, but not unreasonable. But also there came a response from Donald Keogh, who flat out said, these are extraterrestrials. It's not human. Again, the government made the decision to keep this from the American people. 10 years later, 1962, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we almost had a nuclear war. Only 4 years after that, these craft started appearing over our nuclear facilities and shutting our nuclear weapons down. How many times this happened in the 60s, we don't know. Because the Air Force probably at some point was able to keep a much tighter rein on the outcome. But witnesses for a number of these shutdowns came forward. They have been trying to testify before Congress for 30 years, which is when they initially made the decision to start coming forward, led by Captain Robert Salas. The government has not allowed them to testify, and in fact, it has virtually ghosted them. It was about the only thing they could do. All right. And so that was in the 60s. Again, the government kept this from the American people. Decades went on. And then we start to approach what I think is the end game, the end of the truth embargo. And we start moving into that 7-year period starting in 2017. But it's not been easy. It's been slow. There's been pushback. There's been some wins and losses, but we are moving toward disclosure without question. However, we are also moving toward nuclear war. Just that one thing alone is enough to be justification for more action from them. And so as we stall on the disclosure process, we suddenly have what the history will call the era of the drone swarms, the drone swarm flap. Let me take you back to May 17th of 2022. At that time, we had a hearing in front of the subcommittee of the Intelligence Committee in the Senate. Scott Bray and Ronald Moultrie. It was the first hearing, by the way, since the last one in 1968. So we're talking 54 years. So that's progress. And they came in, they were working for the UAP task force, and they testified. It wasn't, grandiose. It was kind of basic. A lot of people were not satisfied. But at that hearing, you may recall, a video was presented, a video that had emerged not too long before the hearing was held. And it involved a drone swarm around one of our ships at night, not over New Jersey, not over the UK, not over some part of the United States, but over one of our ships at night. And they did not shoot them down. In fact, they didn't do anything. And the only reason we got that film is because, well, a lot of sailors have cameras. They're allowed to take cameras with them. And somebody filmed it, and it got in our hands. And Scott Bray, tried to explain it, but it was really painful. So the drone swarm era goes all the way back to 2022. And it has been escalating ever since. And so here is my conclusion. The extraterrestrials have lost their patience. And the risk to us as a civilization has only increased. And so they've decided we're going to end this nonsense. And so they are doing incursions, using their devices, whatever they are, not just in one place, not in two places, not on one continent, multiple continents. And the US government knows it. And what do you do? Here's what they do, right? You can't shoot them down. They know they're extraterrestrial, I can assure you, right? Trying to shoot down extraterrestrial craft of any kind or orbs of any kind, you end up killing human beings, and it's hopeless. You don't want to send up piloted craft because they could crash. So you send up your own drones to somehow monitor them as best you can. And so what you're seeing is a mix of military drones and non-human craft entities of whatever type they want, engaging in some, I guess, process, probably mostly surveillance by us of them. And that is all the government can do. And so what the ETs and their genius have done is put the United States government, the UK government, in an impossible position finally. In other words, we can't tell you what they really are, though we know, but we can't stop them from doing this. And they continue to do it, and they will continue to do it. And the pressure on the government, the embarrassment for the government will become excruciating. And those people within the United States government that somehow have decided that we will never know this truth as long as they walk this face of the earth will finally just capitulate to the growing number of people within our government think it's time we know the truth about this. And so this is an ET-driven intervention to get us into the post-disclosure world before we blow ourselves to hell. The current engagement of it is to send up our own drones to try to, I don't know, follow them, do what we can. The whole thing is a giant fiasco, and it only leads one way, right? There's so many of these things can go on, and so many members of the Senate or the House or the DOD that have to come out with ridiculously idiotic answers and make complete fools of themselves before they realize if we would end this truth embargo, we could stop making fools of ourselves and our government and move on with civilization. That's the narrative that I'm using for this. I'm very comfortable with it, but I certainly invite those that disagree.
All right. So thank you again to UFO Secrecy for posting that clip. And I know it was a longer clip, but I just think it was pretty relevant to what we've been discussing here and in overall, like even when I talked about in the beginning of all the different theories, right? Now there's so much to break down from that statement, right? He talks about the things that he kind of knows are true, and then he has his own theory about it. The idea, there is something about that there are drones out there that are ours, but they're essentially watching over the orbs of light that we've seen. That makes sense, right? It makes sense of what it was. The idea, though, that is always the head scratcher to me is, well, the NHI have lost patience and they want to push for disclosure. But just floating in the sky is how you do that. Why not just land somewhere?
I could think of like a million ways to achieve, if the goal is to not freak everybody out.
Right.
There's probably a bunch of different ways to do that, And so I don't know how much I buy into that one, but the big takeaway for me here is that he's so sure that this is like, it's almost as if the NHI wants, from his point of view, the NHI wants the governments of the world to do it, to do the disclosure,
right,
so that they can usher it through, right? And they're saying, we'd rather you do it, but if you don't do it, we'll happily help you along, and we need to do it soon. That's the indication by what he's talking about. And then to say that we're at a point where, like, you know, if you're screwed on this side, you're screwed on this side, you're going to have to go through with this. And so it's one of those claims where it's one of those things that I hope it's true. It's way better than us looking for nukes that are hiding in our country from another, you know, foreign state actor.
Yeah.
And it also works really nicely with the narrative that a lot of folks talk about, which is there is a correlation minimum with nuclear testing, nuclear sites, et cetera, and NHI. So it fits into that narrative pretty well. You know, it also it's a more of an optimistic take on everything. But I don't know, man. There's a lot there. Like at some point, he has to be proven right or wrong.
Right, and it's also, but this higher intelligence that can basically, you know, can detect whatever it is. You can't shoot them out. They can't find the nukes either. It's like that's what he says. Like they're looking for nukes.
You ever seen that movie Adjustment Bureau?
Yeah, of course, with Matt Damon.
Yeah, I just watched it for the first time.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I bring it up is because it doesn't clearly state in that film what the, you know, adjusters are, but the point is, it seems like they're this more powerful race of intelligence that also has certain limitations themselves. That's the only way you could explain something like this, that there are certain limitations that an NHI has, and therefore they have some leverage.
Sure. But I don't know. It just there's too. I mean, again, Steve Bassett does seem very sure, and he never says this is exactly what's happening. He clearly says it's a theory, and what his theory is, he seems confident in his theory, which you got to respect. I just don't know how you definitely come to that. I mean, he's tied into it. He talks to more people in the inside than you and I do, obviously. So
yeah, for sure.
There's other things that he might know in the same way that, look, I've talked about certain movie properties that I had talked to insiders about that I kind of knew, but to protect them, you don't say, hey, so-and-so told me. You go, I'm pretty sure that this is a thing, when you kind of know that it is, but you also don't want to get people in trouble. So maybe that's the same type of thing here. I don't know, but there's so many different theories going on that this is why, and again, I could be very naive on this and completely wrong, but when it comes to that whole thing where people are saying, well, it's these technology that is looking for nukes because there's a loose nuke or whatever it might be. That was like 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. You know what I mean?
Well, who mentioned the other day that it's not the first lost nuke or nuclear material in our country's history? Like, there's apparently a list of events dealing with lost nuclear material or nukes themselves in the world, around the world, and including our country. So that made me think, like, oh, it's just another one. You know, it's like, it's so bizarre, it's so surreal to contemplate. But
but that's one side of it. But
Yeah.
that's one side of it. Okay, because it's happened before. But the other thing is, if it's just they're still just flying around looking for 2 weeks, we can't find it still. Just 2 weeks, just flying around, and nobody's still saying what it is, and we don't know. I don't buy that at all.
I also don't believe that this would go. It's such a weird thing. This is why, to me, this is the weirdest thing. And I know there was an occurrence in 2020 in Colorado, but this is such a weird thing because you are forcing people who want to keep a secret up against people who want to know everything. Like, you are putting an irresistible force up against the immovable object. You know what I mean? And so if this is some kind of orchestrated thing or some attempt to do something on the DL without everybody knowing exactly why, this is the weirdest way to go about something, man. So there's a part of me that's like, is this just an operation that was constructed, terribly? Like, what?
Right.
Like
Right.
that's a possibility too. Like this is just a giant F up. And then by the time you cross a certain threshold, you have to continue and finish it. So
It is.
you're just going to have egg on your face a little longer.
I just hope that the media handles this responsibly, and I know that's asking a lot, but where it's like, you know, in like a month when we still don't have any answers. Hey, you guys remember the drone stuff?
Nope.
Like,
That's old story. We don't talk about that. That's what's
right.
going to piss me off.
That's
Dude.
what's going to happen. They don't talk. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, nobody cares about the drone stuff anymore. That was just happening.
Don't
in
worry
December.
about that.
Yeah, it's not happening anymore. So they're not talking about it. We're not either. It was just a bunch of light. It's basically what the first guy said. It's just they told you what to eat. That was the soup, and you ate it, and you swallowed it, and then you left. And it's like that's the problem. But what's going to happen is the same thing that happened this time around, right? When these things started popping up, and I had talked to a bunch of people who had first time ever hearing about it, like, oh, this is the first time this happened. I'm like, no, it happened last year over Langley, and it's happened at this time, and Steve Bassett was just talking about another time that it happened. It's continuously happened. The question is, how long will it continue to happen? And in the next time, because they're popping up everywhere now. They're everywhere.
Globally.
They're globally. They're everywhere. So,
which is also super weird.
Yeah. And it's like, and there's not more coverage on it. It's funny. There's less coverage on it. After there's more sightings, there's less coverage. That's bizarre. It's bizarre.
Well, that would track if you were trying, if something was that you wanted to cover up, right? So like, I'm like, crap, it's really like everywhere. Okay, put the word out, no coverage of this on the channels, on the networks, that kind of thing.
I guess, yeah.
I don't know.
It seems like
I'm trying to write the script as it goes.
I know. I mean, it's just it's so confusing, especially with no answers, and especially with no like clear cut footage. And the problem again, so even today, dude, like my editing system that I use just has an update, and with the updates come all this AI stuff, and you can like even do this thing where you like text the video, and if you need something, you turn it, and it's like, how do you do at one point to say like, okay, show me drones in the sky,
I know,
and big light orb, and look what I just recorded in the backyard, and it's like, I'm not saying people are doing that, but it's just
I'm sure some people are,
right? But it's just hard to believe like a lot of this stuff, or it's hard to believe that some of the stuff that you're seeing. Like I saw some video where some guy said he saw a UFO. I don't remember where it was, and then he's like, I think it's in Boston. And then he's like, and then I saw this, and all these lights are blinking on the street. Did you see that video?
No, no, but I remember you describing something like that.
Yeah, and it's like all these lights on the streets are blinking, because the UFO flew over it, and now everything's out of whack. Now, is that real, or is it just somebody who just got the update on the editing equipment also? You know what I mean? It's like, so it's just hard to take things at face value right now.
Well, I think that I think that the one factor there is that you have these public officials who are all coming out.
Yeah.
And that is just so uncharacteristic of those types of people.
Yeah, because they're not getting answers either, and that's why they're mad.
They're not getting answers, and it makes them look like stupid and foolish and weak, frankly.
Yeah, it's like, so the people who hold the power and hold the secrets, they feel fine, so they're not saying anything. But the people when the people aren't left into meetings, it's like, oh, I didn't get to go to that party. That party sucked. It's like but you weren't at the party. If you were at the party, you probably would have liked it. So if those people who were talking about we need people to tell us what's going on, if they knew what was going on, would they tell us?
Yeah, that's fair. But at the same time, it's just like, this can't become a new normal. So whoever gets allowed to know, if they're going to then do what you're describing and then say, oh, suddenly that we can't share that, that's unacceptable too.
Right.
And the reason I say that is because I'm just not comfortable having to live with drones overhead my whole life. Like if the natural progression is we could do whatever we want right over your house and you just got to shut up and deal with it, that's a problem.
It's a huge problem. It just shows that, like, I hate when people go, well, we're the taxpayers. We pay their salaries. They work for us. No, we don't. I mean, they're supposed to. That's supposed to be how it happens, but that's not how it happens. They look at you like you're nothing. That's the thing. Yeah, they look at you like you're nothing. They don't care. Even the ones that say that they do are not really fighting for you. They're fighting for their re-election. They're fighting for things
special interests who are funded the campaign. And that's why I think this is such a big issue, man, especially back to back with the healthcare CEO situation. It's like stop giving people red meat, man, to chew on, to make them think that to confirm the biases of their friends and neighbors, that we are really being disregarded as a populace.
You know, the other thing you sent to me that we always talk about, because there's controversial figures in this community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Stephen Greer's been on a lot of different shows lately, and he's been talking a lot of mainstream stuff too, right? He was on Logan Paul, but he was just on Dana Carvey's podcast, right?
Dana Carvey and David Spade, yeah. Which I thought that was apparently that's the second time he's been on.
So they're, obviously pretty locked into it also, but can you, from what you heard on that interview, is it kind of the same things that he's been talking about, that, he's pretty cut and dry that this is NHI?
Yes.
And he says that in the beginning of January 2025, that he's going to basically have full-on disclosure of what he was saying. So, what did he say on this podcast?
There are a couple of big takeaways. The first one was actually that he doesn't think that most of this stuff is NHI.
Okay.
He almost every time I hear him talk, he has this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, comments, but essentially it's that most of what people see up in the sky is a reverse engineered craft of ours, trying to emulate stuff that we have found or have come across in the last 100 years or whatever. And so the whole idea that the black projects are way ahead, people don't even know, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between that and NHI. So he's always basically saying, when you see it, be skeptical, because it's more than likely us trying to scare us. Okay, right. And to have a justification when they need to militarize against, the ultimate foreign actor, whether it's NHI or whatever it is. They just want to be able to keep propagating a war machine.
Yeah.
So that's that side of things. Right. And the other side of things, the other bullet point from it, which was that essentially before the middle of January, essentially by early January, we should have another major whistleblower come out with a lot of information, including pictures and videos and stuff like that. That's going to really move the needle forward in a big way. And if I remember correctly, it was affiliated with him and his disclosure. I get the wrong name.
Well, does he talk to Ross Coulthart? Is he? Because I know he's not. I know there's some people that he is. I know him and Lou don't see eye to eye at all.
Yeah, I'm looking that up because now I can't remember. I've seen him on so many places. I will say that every time I see him talk, I do feel like it would be great if he was fully legit and not wrong, because he's great at delivering heavy things in a very palatable way. I feel like, so I hope he's the real deal.
Well, because he's saying that something big's coming in the beginning of January. Ross Coulthart said the same thing at the beginning of January. And I just wonder if we're going to be sitting there, you and I, in the end of January going, well, that happened again. Another big old nothing. Or is it like, hey, man, we need to, whatever you're doing, stop what you're doing. We need to talk about what that was.
I feel like if because I don't see any history of them doing videos together upon a quick glance, but I feel like if they're bridging a gap in terms of what they anticipate to happen right around the corner, that a lot of other people would be saying it too, because there's a lot in the middle of it. I don't find Coulthart to be one of these guys who jumps on like the wait till you see what happens next train, right. But he did say something like that.
He said all hell's going to break loose is what he said.
But
what I do is when I made the video about it, I said the thing that I liked is that his co-host at the time said, okay, if it doesn't, I'm going to have to call you out here. Just say like, hey, nothing happened. And he put his feet, dug his heels into the ground and said, no, it's coming.
I feel like some of that stuff is tied to the changing of the administration, right? And the hope that once they're in, they're going to make some big moves, about towards disclosure, on this topic, on the Kennedy topic, et cetera. So we'll see. That's what I think some of this is, but and they're just optimistic about it.
You may not be wrong, but let's see what happens. All that stuff that we're talking about here, with whether it's what Bassett said, what Greer said, any of those topics, put your thoughts in there. Let us know. We're going to cover this Latky thing in just a second, but before we do, I wanted to thank everybody for being here. As always, you guys have been supporting the show. You've been checking out we have some new members, but we've also seen some people getting our sponsors, and I got to tell you about a great one. I told you about Mint Mobile in the past. I'll tell you about Mint Mobile now. Here you go. You know, with big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. So I had been using the regular providers for a bit, and I'm not going to lie, you hear about Mint Mobile all the time. I was like, how true is this? True. Very true. It is straight up. They tell you the truth with how this thing works. You got to say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. You use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan, just $15 a month, you got to go to mintmobile.com/DTE. That's mintmobile.com/DTE. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/DTE. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower, above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, thank you to our friends over at Mint Mobile. As I said before the break, that if you want to help out the show, you get yourself something great. What a deal Mint Mobile has going on right now. So please go and check them out. Okay, so Peter, before we went on the air, I sent you this thing with Latky, and let me post this.
Okay, so let me just go one last time. So basically, David Grush, what he told us, you both feel that information is credible, right? Is that what you
I do
implied?
It's credible, but I'm simply saying he worked with someone that I know and trust as the UAP task force leader, and I think you should take his statements. Now, whether or not, if we could just take a moment here, I've observed, to call him something that is, I'm looking at it particularly in regard to UFOs and the paranormal. There are people who have written, have talked about things they are absolutely wrong about, but they totally believe it. You can't call them liars. They totally believe it. Now, how many of those people that David Grush came across are fit in that category? I could name a list of them right now, but I won't. I mean, obviously, I respect their opinions, but I know what they're saying is false. So it's a phenomenon now. I certainly hope that does not spread across all topics on the internet, because we're in big trouble if that's the case. Because that means people are, is delusional the correct word? I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, but hold on, because we don't have Grush here to talk about who he talked with, but he talks about program names. He talked about program names. He talked about holding locations of UFOs, which you've already admitted that we've got them and we've been exploiting them. So he's talking about things that are very tangible and physical. People that worked on UFOs, those programs. So part of the 40 witnesses that came forward to him are people that actually worked on these legacy UFO programs, which he says exist. We've talked about it. All the 4 of us have talked about it. We know UFO legacy programs have existed, whether or not you can talk about it or not. We know that they existed. So just to give, kind of looking at what he said, he's saying that there are individuals with direct firsthand experience. It's not opinions they can be wrong or right about. It's whether or not these programs existed, and we have these craft we've been working on.
Okay, and I have seen in multiple cases what I can only call forged documents. So.
Okay, so there's another thing we should talk about. So what do you mean by that? There have been forged documents.
What are? there are documents talking about programs that are not legitimate documents.
Within intelligence servers, within your industry, there are forged documents inside of our government's, or what are you talking about? Just on the internet?
I'm
are you talking
about both.
Really? What? How could that happen? Forged documents with inside our intelligence agency server.
They even covered this on an X-Files episode. Every special access program has a counterintelligence officer. That's their job. It's their job. So, you might say, well, wait a minute, Jim and Colin are counterintelligence officers. No, we're not. There's no reason to be. But if you're in a program, you have that person either assigned to you or you bring him in, and there's a source of forged documents right there. Go have your listeners and readers go back through the UFO history, and you'll see fingers pointing to others that, again, I won't name them, that, hey, this is all fabricated.
All right. So if you're looking at that, there's a lot there. I don't know, because I find Latky fascinating. He always had my ear, but he won me over even more so with what he said right before the hearing, and how everything he said about the hearing just kind of came to fruition. The last hearing, right? He said that he's like, no, I wouldn't really testify at this thing because I'm not really protected. You're not going to get anything from any of these people that are testifying at all. And everything he said that was going to be nothing for this thing. And it turned out to be exactly that, right? So what he's saying here is that he's not saying that the people that Grush talked to aren't legit. He's just saying that he's talked to a lot of people inside of that also believe things that just simply aren't true. He's not saying that the stuff isn't true, but he's saying that there's so many things out there that are floating around that it could almost turn itself on its own head, and then he's talking about documents that are out there that aren't real, that are forged. And so it's almost like the conspiracy theory, and anybody could say, well, wait a minute, now he's trying to kind of backtrack on some of the things he said beforehand to say, like, I don't believe everything you hear. So it's very confusing that he would say this. I would recommend people listen to Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp's show on Weaponized to hear the rest of it. But it's, I don't know. What do you make of all this?
It's so funny because I never really I haven't been thinking about that in a long time, but why not? Why wouldn't you have fake documents in every topic that's sensitive, especially to see if you can weed out spies, if you can weed out leaks, So I guess on that regard, I'm not shocked, and I shouldn't be surprised. I also simultaneously think it's a great tool to have in your back pocket for throwing people off the scent of things, just to be able to say it. In other words, you don't even have to have them in there. You could just say it. And you're not saying which ones are specifically counterintelligence, et cetera, but you could just be like, hey, just so you know, before you get carried away, there's some fake documents in there.
Right.
And these people mean well, but they might be picking up something that we put in there to weed out leakers and spies. And I can't say it in that great of a detail because it's all sensitive, but rest assured that the guy who knows things, I may have heard people say things with conviction because they feel like they came across something of importance, but they're not accurate. They're not lying, but they don't have legitimate information to bake these things off of.
Right. So it's even more confusing when you get to the coordination.
Lucasfilm should do that, by the way.
100%. The coordination of how they're putting things together, with whether it is disinformation or however it might be, to throw people off the scent, whatever. And it's similar to the drone stuff, right? And the other side of the drone stuff that we really didn't talk about was the idea that, what I will say, and it kind of goes into this whole story that we're going to talk about next, is that it does seem like there is a group of people that are keeping it quiet and are lying to people. And those people that are lying to us, it doesn't seem to be just people keep saying, well, it's the Biden administration that's not telling us the truth. I mean, that's true, but they're also working with people on the right side of things. On the right and the left are working together, I think, to keep it quiet. And there's a lot of people on both sides that have no idea what's going on. So I think Tucker Carlson was talking to somebody about this very same thing. And listen to this quote from what he says.
I talked to a member of Congress who I trust. There aren't many of those, but there are a few I trust. I talked to one I trust who went into the SCIF with congressional leaders, the secure area where you can have secure conversations and all that, and got a briefing from intel briefers on those drones, and the briefing was effectively identical to the DoD press release. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So they're not telling members of Congress, which, by the way, I think is unconstitutional. I don't think Congress doesn't assert its rights. That's a whole separate question, but they should demand it. Like, we're not funding you until they give me the fucking answer.
Right.
But, excuse me, that's how I feel. But the point is, I called, every sector I called, and I got like 5 different answers. So here's what I know. I know that something actually big is happening. I think we can deduce that.
Yeah.
I know that the cover-up is bipartisan completely. It's bipartisan. That always makes me uncomfortable. When both sides are in on something, it's not good. And I know that I don't know what it really is, which is just I've never had this experience before.
So he's kind of saying the same thing that we are, right? And other people are. I don't know what the hell it is. We just know it's something big. And we know it's in general. And essentially what we just said is that if they're working together on it, that's also not great. Because when do they work together on anything? And they know that, well, this is one that we got to all be on the same page with. And the fact that Congress is being left in the dark here because it's like, you can't let this thing spread at all. And certain people just can't know about it. So feed them the same shit we're feeding everybody else. So yeah, what do you think about that comment?
I mean, it's like such a circular thing to ponder. The first thing is I was thinking as you were talking, I was like, man, this would be the greatest thing to roll out whenever you want people to focus on something else besides what they're focused on. It's like you just fly up a bunch of drones, put them away.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything with them. Just fly them up there, bring them back. And what would you say? Well, they're no harm. They're not ours. They're not someone else's. It's like by saying they're not ours, you could be referring to they belong to some private group or whatever. But it's such an awesome thing to do to get everybody to look away. The idea of the double, of both parties covering it up, man, is like, I think both parties are not being given information.
Right.
So, so it's like, whether it's a cover up, whether it's just like a stranglehold of irrelevant information that could put people at ease. I think it's starting to feel like episodic television.
It is. And it's like, well, the question is, what's the season finale?
Yeah. Or is there one? Is it just like a cliffhanger and then they put it away?
The show gets canceled and you never find out what happened.
This is lost in current events. Like it keeps you coming back for more, and then eventually it just sputters out into nothing.
No, it had a finale though. Whether you like the finale or not, it had a finale. It's not a show that just you want to see what happens and like, oh no, we're not getting a season 2.
Right.
So I don't know. Anyway, I think that's everything we got here today, man. There's more stuff that I'm sure over the next couple of days will be happening, but we're gonna taking a break, much needed break. Both myself and Peter. I'll have some videos. I think I'm gonna kind of pre-shoot and put them up. And if anything, obviously, really big breaks, and I'll try to do something. But Peter, where can they find you? What's going on?
Nowhere. Leave me alone for a week. No. No. I'm Attack Peter anywhere. And honestly, like, people have sent me some cool stuff recently. I forwarded you some stuff that I get. We can't get to all of it every time, and sometimes we're looking into stuff, and sometimes we're too dumb to really understand what it is. But thank you for sending us stuff, and I will personally look at all of it. So keep it coming.
Thank you guys for joining us here again today. Thank you for joining us in all of 2024. To be completely honest with you, it's been really, really eye-opening, learning a lot of the stuff that you guys have been thinking about this, and more people getting on board with this topic and realizing that there's more out there than they're telling us. So keep asking questions, do what you got to do, support everybody in the community. Have a great holiday. Thank you to everyone and to Attack Peter. We'll see you guys really soon. Bye-bye.